Maureen O'Hara shows us the creepiest people in Hollywood. Maureen O'Hara was born on August 17, 1920, in Rianella, Ireland. His full name was Maureen Fitzsimons. From a very young age, O'Hara showed a strong interest in the arts. She trained at Ireland's National Theatre, the Abbey Theatre, where she improved her acting, singing, and theatre skills. She grew up in a close-knit Irish family that supported her creativity. Even though she was only seen in black and white movies at first, her natural red hair, pale skin, and expressive green eyes would later become famous for their beauty in Technicolor movies. It wasn't until the late 1930s that famous actor Charles Lawton found O'Hara and helped her become famous. Because he liked her acting and how she looked on screen, Lawton hired her to work for his production company and put her in a movie directed by Alfred Hitchcock in Jamaica in 1939. She got her first Hollywood part in The Hunchback of Notre Dame, 1939, playing the beautiful and tragic Esmeralda opposite Lawton's Quasimodo. The movie made her famous all over the world. She went from British movies to Hollywood movies without a hitch, and she quickly became known as one of the most beautiful stars in the business. Not only was Maureen O'Hara praised for how beautiful she was, but also for how strong, dignified, and smart she was when playing complicated women. During a time when many actresses were stuck in passive or minor parts, O'Hara stood out by playing strong, independent, and capable women. As a result of her roles in movies like How Green Was My Valley, 1941, which won the Academy Award for Best Picture, The Black Swan, 1942, and Sinbad the Sailor, 1947, she proved that she was a great leading lady. As one of Hollywood's most recognized directors, John Ford, and the legendary actor John Wayne, with whom she had a close friendship and great on-screen chemistry, were two of her most cherished and long-lasting work together. They worked together on a number of great movies, such as Rio Grande, 1950, The Quiet Man, 1952, and McClintock, 1963. Many people think that The Quiet Man is their best work together because it shows how strong and emotional O'Hara is as Mary-Kate Danaher, a proud Irish woman whose conflicts with and ultimate romance with Wayne's character were portrayed so well in the movie. Her fierce performance, which was full of emotion, defiance, and vulnerability, made the movie famous, and fans still love it today. O'Hara was known for being honest and not giving in to Hollywood standards when she wasn't working in movies. She was known for standing up to the studio system and demanding fair treatment and the freedom to choose parts that were in line with her beliefs. She didn't mind turning down stories she thought were insulting or boring, which made her known for being strong and sure of herself. She also refused to change how she looked or give up her beliefs. She was proud to say, "I was the only leading lady in Hollywood who could speak with an Irish accent and didn't have to change it." Maureen O'Hara continued to play certain parts in movies and on TV over the years, but she also spent time with her family and in business, including running an airline with her third husband, Charles Blair, who was a famous World War II pilot and commercial pilot. Blair died in a plane crash in 1978, which was a tragedy, but O'Hara kept busy and strong. She later wrote her autobiography, "'Tis Herself," which was honest about her life and work. The Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences gave Maureen O'Hara an honorary Oscar in 2014 to recognize her lifetime of work in addition to the art of film. At the event, her unbreakable spirit and timeless grace once again wowed the crowd, showing that she was still a powerful force even in her later years. Maureen O'Hara got married for the first time in 1939, when she was only 19. She married English film producer and assistant director George H. Brown. They met on the set of Alfred Hitchcock's Jamaica Inn, where sparks seemed to be busy both on and off the set. O'Hara was just starting out as an actress at the time, and the relationship was very fast-paced. Because of these factors, the marriage was a big and secret move. The couple kept their relationship mostly secret from the public, possibly because of the pressures of the movie business and the fact that they were going in different job directions. But it was clear right away that the marriage was hasty and not good for the long run. Troubles in the marriage that neither person could handle led to the end of the marriage in 1941, only 2 years after it started. O'Hara was still trying to find her footing in both her personal and work life, and this early experience with marriage would stay with her. It was the same year that O'Hara married a second time, this time to American film director William Houston Price. Their relationship grew as they worked together on projects together. Price worked on a number of her movies, such as Dance Girl, Dance. At first, the marriage looked good, but problems in their personal lives, especially Price's heavy drinking, quickly made it worse. Even though things were tense, on June 30, 1944, they had a girl named Bronwyn Bridget Price. O'Hara was very happy when she became a mother. She loved being a parent and was determined to give her daughter a stable and loving home. But the problems that had been going on in the marriage kept getting worse. Their home was emotionally unstable and strained because Price was an alcoholic. O'Hara, who was strong and strongly independent, finally decided to end the marriage in 1951 after 10 years of hard times. The divorce was painful, but it was also a turning point in her life. It made her more determined to balance her busy acting job with her duties as a single mother. Between the years after her second divorce, O'Hara was in a passionate, long-lasting relationship with Enrique Parr, a rich Mexican politician and banker. From 1953 to 1967, they were together, and their relationship was very important in O'Hara's life. It was exciting and complicated at times. Parra, a charming and important person in Mexican society, showed O'Hara a new culture and a life that was both glamorous and polite. They had a strong bond. Even though they never got married, they were together for almost 15 years, which shows how much they loved each other and how stable Pa was in O'Hara's life during a time of change. No matter what. Even though they had a strong bond, they eventually broke up because of cultural differences and the stress of public life. Still, O'Hara was deeply affected by the connection and spoke fondly of Parra even after they were no longer together. In 1968, when she was 48 years old, Maureen O'Hara found the man many people think was her true love. She married Charles F. Blair, Jr., a famous pilot who had a long and impressive career that included being a U.S. Air Force Brigadier General, a pioneer in commercial transatlantic flight, and Pan American World Airways top pilot. Blair also started Antilles Airboats, a Caribbean seaplane service. O'Hara was very impressed by how smart, brave, and always looking for new adventures he was. They loved each other and were close during their marriage, and Blair pushed her to live a quieter, more private life away from the attention. Once they were married for a few years, O'Hara quit acting to help her husband with his flying business and take a well-deserved break from the fast-paced world of Hollywood. They made their home in the U.S. Virgin Islands and lived a peaceful, happy life there. Sad to say, though, their time together was cut short. Charles Blair died in a terrible plane crash in 1978, just 10 years after getting married. He was flying one of his seaplanes. The loss was terrible for O'Hara, who had to deal with both her own serious health problems and the sudden death of her beloved husband. In the same year, she was told she had uterine cancer, which was a scary and life-changing event. O'Hara had surgery soon after being told she had cancer. She did so with the same strength and drive that had made her famous on and off screen. Thankfully, the surgery went well, and she finally fully recovered. Even though the years after Blair's death were sad and full of thought, O'Hara showed a lot of strength by continuing to live with honor, grace, and a deep love for the people who had helped shape her life. The Irish actress Maureen O'Hara, who had fiery red hair and was known for having a strong will and a beautiful personality on screen, was more than just a movie star. She was also one of the first female stars to speak out against how the Hollywood studio system was used to take advantage of women. In a time when actresses were supposed to be quiet and follow orders, O'Hara refused to put up with the predatory behavior that had become so common in the movie business. Because she spoke her mind, was honest, and wouldn't give in to the demands of strong men in the business, she was both feared and respected. Her honest stories about the creeps in Hollywood would later be seen as a precursor to modern movements calling for accountability. Back in the 1940s and 1950s, O'Hara worked with some of the biggest names in the business, like John Ford as a director and John Wayne and Tyrone Power as co-stars. But behind all the fame and attention, she quietly dealt with and fought back against sexual harassment and unethical behavior by powerful producers and execs. Later, In interviews, she said that her career had been harmed because she wouldn't give in to what was thought to be Hollywood's unspoken casting couch culture at the time. In a 1957 interview, she said bluntly, "I was insulted, humiliated, and blacklisted because I wouldn't let studio heads and producers touch me." That kind of speech was almost unheard of back then, when the press and studio bosses would quickly silence or discredit any actress who tried to question their power. In later talks and writings, she didn't hold back when she called out bad behavior, even from some of the most respected people in movie history. One person she was very honest about was the famous but very controversial director John Ford. A man who was very important to her work and whose relationship with her was very complicated. Without a doubt, John Ford was one of the best movie directors in Hollywood history. Ford made a huge number of well-known movies, such as The Grapes of Wrath, Stagecoach, and The Searchers. He helped define the Western genre and shaped the golden age of American movies. Behind the genius exterior, though, was a deeply troubled and often abusive man who battled his own problems and took out much of his anger on those around him, especially his actors. Maureen O'Hara took the brunt of his mental chaos more than anyone else. The most famous movie O'Hara and Ford worked on together was The Quiet Man, 1952, which is still praised as a gem. The movie showed how well O'Hara and co-star John Wayne got along and painted a beautiful picture of Ireland, but the relationship between O'Hara and Ford behind the scenes was anything but perfect. In later years, O'Hara showed that Ford was more than just a difficult and moody director. He was mean, destructive, and sometimes even rude to her when he talked to her. She talked about times when Ford would scold her in public on set for what seemed like no reason. It became clearer over time that he was rude, bossy, and jealous, all of which affected their work relationship. O'Hara says Ford was obsessed with her without her reciprocating, something he never said out loud but often showed up as anger and disdain. She thought that Ford's strong feelings for her, along with his strict Catholic upbringing and failure to deal with rejection, made for a volatile emotional mix. Instead of being honest about how he felt, Ford snapped out, using his power as a director to control and scare people. In a very disturbing story, O'Hara said that Ford hit her in the face during a movie shoot, supposedly as a way to direct her. During the 1940s and 1950s, this kind of behavior might have been accepted or even seen as usual in the studio system. But O'Hara found it unacceptable and told them so. She didn't back down, she stood her ground and wouldn't shrink or be embarrassed. Afterward, she said that Ford was drawn to her fearless determination, which was also probably why he admired her, even if he didn't want to. It shows how strong and morally clear Maureen O'Hara is that she was ready to speak out about Ford's abusive behavior, especially at a time when the movie business was dominated by strong men and strict hierarchies. She didn't try to erase Ford's reputation or downplay his skills. Instead, she painted a complex picture of a man who is pulled between being brilliant and destroying himself. For O'Hara, Ford was a tortured character who could have amazing vision and be very cruel. He was a man who led with his heart and punished others with his fears. O'Hara talked about how her refusal to give in to unwanted advances cost her jobs and chances. She remembered that powerful men had told her that she would never work in the field again if she didn't play the game. Even though she was under a lot of pressure, she stood steady, sure of her skills and her morals. Some reporters were shocked by what she said, but many people liked how she wouldn't give up on herself or her morals. O'Hara was raised in Ireland with strong Catholic beliefs. She learned that personal honor was the most important thing, and she took that with her into the tough world of show business. O'Hara never gave up, no matter what happened. She kept working, and she often chose parts that matched how strong she felt inside. Strong heroines, proud moms, and independent women. She showed her range and strength in movies like The Quiet Man, Miracle on 34th Street, and How Green Was My Valley. Behind the scenes, she fought for fairness and respect, which wasn't easy for many actors at the time. It cost her a lot to be brave, but she kept going and finally did very well without ever giving in to Hollywood's bad guys. Her boldness set the stage for people who would come after her. Looking back, O'Hara's early accusations pointed the way for a bigger culture reckoning that would happen decades later. Before the hashtag #MeToo movement and actors like Rose McGowan, Ashley Judd, and others spoke out, Maureen O'Hara was brave enough to tell the truth about how bad fame can be. A lot of people tried to ignore her at the time, but history would show that she had a very honest voice in a field where silence was often praised. As Hollywood became more open about its own past in its later years, O'Hara was finally recognized for more than just her famous parts. She was also praised for being fiercely independent and brave enough to tell the truth when many others were afraid. Her memory lives on not only in the movies she directed, but also in the honest way she lived her life and worked. In her sleep on October 24, 2015, Maureen O'Hara died at her home in Boise, Idaho. She was 95 years old. Her death was normal, and it marked the end of a very interesting life that lasted almost 100 years. O'Hara had a long and successful career in movies. She was one of the most famous and loved actors of her time, known for her fiery red hair, stunning beauty, and strong, independent roles on screen. Hollywood's golden age lost an iconic star when she died. She was known for her parts in classic movies like The Quiet Man, How Green Was My Valley, and Miracle on 34th Street. She died in Boise, where she had spent the last few years of her life mostly alone and out of the spotlight. She had chosen a quieter life in Idaho, even though she was famous. This showed that she wanted peace and privacy after a job full of the intense pressures of Hollywood. In the 1970s, O'Hara quit acting in part because she wanted to spend more time with her family and her personal life. She lived the last few decades of her life out of the public eye, but her impact as a pioneer for women in film continued to be felt by both fans and scholars. Arlington National Cemetery in Virginia is a very holy place where O'Hara is buried. Her husband Charles Blair, who was an officer in the U.S. Marine Corps and an aviation businessman, was buried next to her. Blair, who O'Hara married in 1968, was a very important person in her later years. Not only was he her friend, but he also brought her a lot of happiness. They loved each other very much, and she was heartbroken when he died too soon in a plane crash in 1978. The fact that O'Hara chose to be buried next to him at Arlington made her a part of the group of people who had served their country. A fitting honor to her own long and interesting life.